Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great time. Butch here. Butch, you've been behind so many incredible characters and shows, and I mean, I've definitely experienced your work, and I know so many people have, and it's been exciting and enthralling, and as well as impactful to many people. Whether it's Danny Phantom, the Fairly OddParents, your new stuff you've been doing as well, the content creation side of your of the platforms you've developed, and telling stories behind what's happening. I'm just excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Well, hey Ben, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And I kind of like this guerrilla style podcast you got going on here. And you're in like a secret lair somewhere. We don't know where you are. Is it like a bunker? Are you afraid you're going to get attacked? Is that what's going on?
No, I'm just in the city.
Oh, got it. No, hey man, I'm excited to be here. So I hope. How old are you, by the way?
24.
Okay, did you grow up with some of my cartoons?
100%. I've seen a lot of Danny Phantom and a lot of Fairly Odd Parents. So probably way
Oh,
too much.
fantastic. That's great, right? I've been, it's funny, I've been on at the time of this recording, I've been on a 14 city Comic Con tour around the country this year. And so I've been to about 11 cities this year so far. And just the response and the wonderful love I get from the fans is just overwhelming. It's really, really a great thing. So I'm just excited anybody's watched anything I've ever done because, you make these cartoons, you get a chance to make one, a studio says yes. You now get some funding to make a cartoon. You get to hire staff. You get to write stories. Then you sit in a building all day and you make these cartoons, and then you give them to the network and they put them on the air somewhere. And unfortunately, people are watching them. So I'm very grateful for anything I've ever been able to do and people have seen.
It's awesome. So, Butch, early on, how did your passion for wanting to create cartoons and these kind of worlds with characters and animation begin?
Well, I was very young. I was a young kid when I first started drawing. I was about 6 years old, and I would draw all the time. I really enjoyed it, and I would learn really quickly. I'm still learning today, but at the time as a kid, I learned a lot of tricks very early. Oh, to make an eye, you make a circle and then another circle, things like that. Uh, how do you draw? I would copy cartoons off TV all the time. I didn't ever think I could make a living doing it, though. It wasn't something I thought of as a job because my father worked in the auto industry in Detroit. That's where I'm from. So I thought a job was where you had to go to a factory and work in a factory and that kind of thing. I never knew you could actually get paid to draw cartoons and didn't realize that till later in life. But I ended up going to college. I left Michigan when I was 18 after high school and then went to California to enroll in California Institute of the Arts, Cal Arts, founded by Walt Disney, and then went and did 3 years there. And then got into the industry. I realized I didn't need a degree in animation. After 3 years of school, I realized that I didn't need a degree if I could draw. So I really focused on drawing and getting jobs. And I started working in the TV industry. I always wanted to work for Disney, but I never did. I always went right into TV.
So, you had this passion, you started to develop your skills. Early on, you were able to work for Hanna-Barbera. How impactful was that experience being able to be involved in animation there?
It was really quite exciting because here I am working at a place, because once you're out in the industry, I was in LA in the late 80s, early 90s, and trying to I took a job anywhere I could get it. If I could draw props at this studio, if I could draw characters at this studio, do storyboards here, learning all along the way. I definitely wasn't as good as I am now, and I'm certainly not the best in the world now, but I mean, I got better as the years went by, learned how to do certain things, learned shortcuts, learned how to become a better draftsman. And working at Hanna-Barbera was a dream come true for me because number one, they were hiring, which was exciting. But by the time I got there in the early 90s, it was sort of like slowing down there. Joe Barbera and Bill Hanna were very old at the time, and a lot of the energy had sort of waned from the studio. I mean, only because of time. I mean, these guys were giants in the industry. I love these guys, and I grew up on their work. But at the time, it was like, what are we going to do here? Because they were kind of just making shows like Tom and Jerry Kids, Droopy, Master Detective, like famous characters, and they were remaking them and rebooting them. But then Cartoon Network came in, Ted Turner came in, Turner Broadcasting came in and bought Hanna-Barbera and turned it into Cartoon Network, bought the library. So I was right there when that happened.
Hmm. Interesting. So, I mean, you got to be around some of the top animators and character developers, in the space at the time, and I mean, that was probably an incredible experience.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because at the time I got there, no one really knew who the artists were. I mean, you didn't know the artists. You knew the show. You didn't know the artists. Like today, it's a lot different. Like you can know the artists behind the show. People know me and my shows. Gendy Tartakovsky, Craig McCracken. People know those guys. But back then, nobody really knew the artists. You knew Hanna-Barbera, but didn't know the hundreds of people that worked on the shows. And so, thanks to social media and some other things, we've been able to kind of get our faces out there a little bit. That's not why we do it. We do it because we love it. But yeah, man, I really dug, working there. It was a dream come true for me. And I really learned a lot about creating great characters, developing characters, and especially pitching original stuff. Because when I got there, they were starting to allow you to pitch your own ideas. And that was like unheard of at the time. You can pitch your own idea. What does that mean? That means you come up with an idea and you can show it to them. It's like, oh, really? Now, suddenly, instead of drawing what I'm assigned to do every week, I had to be the one to come up with the show. Not had to, but I had a chance to become the one behind the scenes. Like, wow, I could come up with the story. I can come up with a concept. I can come up with dialogue. I can really create something exciting. And so that's the era you saw things like Dexter's Lab come out and Powerpuff Girls and, Johnny Bravo and all those amazing shows that came out at the time. So it was really a fun time to be working there.
So, Butch, how did you pitch and get your first show that was really your own greenlit?
Good question. At the time, I was working on a lot of the shows. Like Hanna-Barbera was making, let's say, Tom and Jerry Kids and Droopy Master Detective, and they were making the Addams Family cartoon and things like that. So I got to dabble a little bit on a couple of those. But then when the pitch opportunity came up, I wasn't going to pitch anything. And a friend of mine said, hey, why don't we pitch something? And I went, okay, I'll help you pitch whatever you want. Because again, my brain was, you don't make your own show, you work on somebody else's show. And so he pitched an idea and it went. It got sold and I got to help him with it. And then I kind of got the bug and went, wow, this is pretty cool. So I tried selling a few things at Hanna-Barbera for the What a Cartoon show. That's what it was called, What a Cartoon. And if you watch What a Cartoon, you'd watch 30 minutes and there'd be 3 7-minute cartoons in there. And so I worked on a couple of those. I pitched a couple of ideas that got sold with a couple of partners that I had. And it was like really fun. Like one was about a shark and a lynx that worked on the bomb squad called Fish and Chip, which was really fun. Another one was called Hillbilly Blue, about a crawdad and a muskrat that go down to Louisiana. Yeah. And another one was called Gramps, about an old man who tells crazy stories and puts his grandkids in the story with him. Anyway, so they were a lot of fun. But then I had partners on those, but then I really wanted to make a show all on my own. And I was working on Johnny Bravo at the time because it had been a series. And season 1 was all done. It was no more Johnny Bravo. And I thought, man, I was out of a job. So I thought, boy, I'm just going to give this a shot. So my friend, Fred Seibert, who had created the What a Cartoon show, he had moved over to Nickelodeon and he was creating a show called the Oh Yeah Cartoon Show, which was exactly the same as the What a Cartoon show. So again, you'd watch the Oh Yeah cartoons and you'd see 3 shorts on there. He goes, I got 1 slot left. I'd love to have you do something. I said, this was Tuesday. I said, great. I got a great idea. See you Friday. Hung up the phone. I had no idea at all. I had nothing. So I sat at my desk and I'm like, you know what? I got to come up with an idea. And I had a couple ideas I'd worked on before, but I was really happy with. So I'm like, I think I'm going to come up with a show. I'm just going to do this because I'm tired of getting laid off. I'm tired of having to hop from job to job. I'm going to make my own show, sink or swim. So I thought I always know, I know little boys. I'm like, I'm going to write a show about a little boy. So I drew a little guy with big buck teeth and this hat, and I called him Timmy after my brother Timmy. And then I drew a fairy godmother because I wanted to do a boy version of Cinderella. I was going to do a science show, but Dexter's Lab was already out, so I couldn't do that. I thought, I can't do science, but I could do magic. That's kind of cool. So I decided to do magic, and I created this character called Venus. It was a fairy godmother with a big swirly head of hair. But I got Venus and Timmy, and I'd never seen a fairy godfather before, so that'd be kind of fun if I created a fairy godfather. So I drew this guy with green hair and a tie and kind of a big smile, and I was like, what can I name this guy? And Seinfeld had just released an episode where Kramer's real name was revealed, and his name is Cosmo Kramer. So Cosmo's a great name, so I named him Cosmo. So I had Timmy, Cosmo, and Venus, and I changed Venus's name to Wanda. Because I thought Magic Wanda, So in about 10 minutes, I had the Fairly OddParents idea.
Really that quick?
That, I swear to you, it was that quick on that one. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to have to come up with a villain for him. And I thought an evil babysitter would be funny. So I drew Vicky. And then I drew a picture of the fairy godparents as fish in a bowl. I thought it'd be kind of fun if the kid, because kids like to have secrets. So what if like, when the parents walk in, they would change into something real quick and they'd, pop into a fishbowl. And that explains why throughout the series they would turn into salt shakers and bikes and, cats and dogs and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of how it developed over about 10 minutes. And I took it to Fred Seibert on that Friday and pitched it to him. I wrote up a little script, and I'd never written a script before on my own for my own show. I wrote my own script, and then I took in some storyboard panels, about 10 of them. Like, here's what the show could look like. Here's the characters. What do you think? And they said, we love it. And so I ended up doing one episode. It was a 7-minute episode. I even pitched it to Cartoon Network first because I was
Huh.
contractually obligated to pitch it to them, but they said no. And so I took it over to Fred, and Fred said yes. We made one episode, and then Nickelodeon liked that episode so much they gave me about 4 more episodes to do. I did 4 of those, and it was pretty much, they were all 7 minutes long. I pretty much did them by myself. I had a couple people helping me, and then took about 2 years to do all those, and then they focus tested them, and then we made it a series, and it premiered in 2001.
So what did you do during like the 2 years? Like, why did it take so much time?
Well, you're doing cartoon shorts, and they take several months to do. So I ended up doing about 10 shorts by myself, and I had
Mm.
about 2 other people helping me. But I had to write them, board them, direct them, cast the voices, all that stuff. And then within 2 years, I had 10 shorts that I'd done. And then they said, we're going to make it a series. So then I had to do 6 new episodes. I had to do 6 half hours of brand new episodes. And I introduced some new characters too. Like the first 10 shorts were pretty much just Timmy, Cosmo, and Wanda in his house, with Vicky being the villain. But then when I expanded it to the series, I added Chester and AJ and Mr. Crocker and Timmy's parents. And so we added a few more characters in there, the Crimson Chin and that type of thing. And so I ended up doing that. So we did the first 6 half hours, and that's all they bought was 6 half hours. And when we premiered the first episode in March of 2001, it did so well, they instantly wanted to make more. And I said, well, you guys should have bought more. So they bought more, but it took me a year to make the new ones. And they reran those first 6 for 1 year, and they just kept doing better and better. And it was really, really exciting. And so we aired my shorts that I did plus those 6 until a year later when all the new ones came out.
Why, if you had to break down, Butch, like why you think that the Fairly Odd Parents did so well, like what would you say were the fundamental aspects of its success?
I think the main thing is the characters and the writing. I really think the writing and the storytelling. I think having characters you could put anywhere and they're funny. Having a character like Cosmo, yes, he's magic, he can do anything, but the fact that he's a blithering idiot most of the time is really funny. I think having Timmy, who doesn't care about anyone but himself and then gets into all this trouble. I just think it's the writing and the characters with any good show, any show that you love. You always find yourself drawn to 1 or 2 of the characters, and you're going to watch it over and over again, no matter what. When I was a kid, I used to love a show called Happy Days, and there was a character on there named Fonzie, and I used to love Fonzie. And I would watch the show because of Fonzie. I didn't care about anybody else. I wanted to see that character. So if you can create a great character, people will watch it all the time.
So you were executive producing and involved with the show for over 10 years. I think it was almost 20 years. How were you able to consistently keep coming up with new ideas? Have that great energy that you needed to bring the personalities out in these characters for that long?
Good question. Yeah, it was definitely over 20 years. I sold the show in 1997, and I left Nickelodeon in 2018. So it was 20 years. And the way you sustain a show like that is you just have great writers with you. You have a great team, and you just get excited every day. I need to come up with something funny for Timmy to do. It was always, what problem can Timmy get into today? It starts with Timmy. If we can't think of something for Timmy, then we move over to Cosmo, or if we then move over to Wanda, or one of the 3 starts it off. But if we can't come up with something for the main characters, what other character can have an issue, and how does it relate to Timmy, Cosmo, and Wanda? So it's always making sure keep your main characters involved, to keep them as funny as possible, and to give them something the audience can relate to. Like Timmy doesn't want to get a haircut, so he wishes for indestructible hair. And so the hair is looking amazing, can't cut it, and then suddenly it gets out of control, of course, and takes over the city. And then, now we're in big trouble. So how can you sustain an idea? It's just as simple as, having your characters evolve and making sure that the audience can relate to them.
So because you had the success with the Fairly Odd Parents, you were given the opportunity to create another show, and you created Danny Phantom. How did that opportunity like?
He's right there. There he is. There he is right there. Um, well,
How
that
did that
came
happen?
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came about because Fairly Odd Parents was doing really well. But I had another idea in the meantime as well. I wanted to create a boys' action show. And as Fairly Odd Parents is going on, I'm kind of on my own. I'm driving my mom in a moving van from Vegas because I'm moving her from Vegas to LA. So we're driving, and I'm thinking, Nick needs a new boys' action show. I need a cool name. First, let's start with the name because I used to love the show Johnny Quest. That was a really cool name. So I'm thinking Quest. That's a cool name, like dynamite, like thunder, lightning. And then I hit the word Phantom. Phantom's cool. Phantom. Bobby Phantom, Jimmy Phantom, and I had Danny Phantom hit my head. I'm like, that's a killer title, Danny Phantom. And so by the time I got back to LA, I had Danny Phantom, the title, and I thought, well, I started drawing him. Like, could he be a Ghostbuster, like a Scooby Doo type guy with his friends? I like that aspect, but then we decided to make him a superhero and give him ghost powers. And so that kind of came about. So the heads of Nickelodeon took me out to dinner a couple months later because Fairly Odd Parents was doing very well, thank God. And they said, do you have anything else? We'd love to pick up more Fairly Odd Parents. What else do you have? And I always tell people that's an opportunity that's amazing. And I hope everybody out there can hear me. If you have an opportunity like that, always be ready. ABR, always be ready. Because opportunities are like comets, like Halley's Comet. They're really cool, but they don't come around very often. It'll be a very long time till you see another one, probably. So, fortunately, I was ready. I said, hey, I got this show called Danny Phantom. It's about a kid who fights ghosts. And they're like, can you have it in March? Like, can we get this pilot done? Like, it was that quick. So now I go back to work the next day. I've got Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom I got to start developing. So now I got two shows. And so I had to hire two staffs, two sets of writers, two sets of artists. So now every day I'm dividing my day, Fairly Odd, Danny Phantom, every single day. And so as exhausting as that was, it was one of the most exhilarating creative times I ever had.
Mm. And so, why did you create your own like production company? Like, was it just to kind of handle all that was going on internally?
Oh yeah, I mean, at the time, it's a benefit to you tax wise when you have your own production company because you can financially handle things a little differently than if you just a work for hire type of thing. So you start a production company, you basically loan yourself out to Nickelodeon to make the shows. That's where Billionfold came in. That's my production company. And so we made Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, Tough Puppy, and Bunsen is a Beast, my fourth show at Nick. And everything I do runs through Billionful. But I got a brand new show called The Garden that I'm doing now that is through Garden Productions, which is another production company that I have.
So, what was it like? Like, I mean, you talked a little bit about like kind of managing both the shows, but why did you ultimately decide that it was kind of you want to take a step back from working with Nick and kind of do something different?
It was interesting. I don't look at it as taking a step back, although I see why you could say that. By the time 2018 rolled around, I'd been at Nickelodeon for 20 years. And you're only 24. So, I mean, I've been there, I was there your whole life, basically. So I thought I think it's just time to leave. I was like, I've been there a long time, like a lifetime. I had a blast at Nickelodeon. I love everything about my time there. Nickelodeon's an amazing company. Um, but I thought, I'm going to go on my own now and do some stuff on my own. It comes down to wanting to own more of the IP on your own. Because all my shows in Nickelodeon, they own the IP. I created it, I pitched it, and what happens with a Hollywood studio is when they buy something from you, they're taking all the risk. They're giving you money, and if it fails, they lost the money. But if it makes it, then that's the way America works, right? You invest in something and it works, you get all the benefit. So I still get royalties and all that stuff, and I get paid to work on the show and all that. But with my new production company, I own everything, and I'm basically the Nickelodeon now, which is exciting. So that requires a lot more work, a lot more people skills, a lot more business skills, and I've had to learn. I've had to take. I say this to every artist that I meet: take your headphones out, stop drawing, and start meeting people. Become an entrepreneur and an artist, not just an artist. Because as an artist, you can always be replaced by another artist. But as an entrepreneur, you can really carve your own path.
Definitely agree. So, as you've been able to do, really incredible art, Like, what would you say are some of the aspects that make the art that you've done kind of stand out and maybe more relatable and capture the personalities of the characters? Like, what kind of goes into your thought process behind the art that you make?
Wow, man, I'm so grateful anybody likes my art at all. When you're drawing and when you're an artist, you're super insecure. And you're in a field. It's like being in the major leagues. When you're in the industry, you're with a bunch of people that are unbelievably talented. You're just going, my gosh, I don't even know how I'm going to survive here. I can't draw that. I can't paint that. I can't storyboard that. Oh my gosh, I can do it my way, but I can't do it that way. And so, what I was very fortunate to do, and I sort of stumbled into it, I was able to carve my own niche because they bought my show at Nickelodeon and it was my show. So I could design it the way I wanted to. I designed it the way I was capable of drawing. And so then I was able to develop my own style that way, which has now become, I guess, the Butch Hartman style or whatever, but that's my style. So that is my limited style. And that's how I can, I draw things my way. And so that's my style. Now, can I adapt? I know how to adapt because when I got in the industry and when an artist gets into the animation industry, you have to learn how to draw other people's stuff. Like if I was working on SpongeBob, I have to learn how to draw SpongeBob. I'm working on My Little Pony, I got to learn how to draw My Little Pony. You understand what I mean? But when you're working on your own show, you get a chance to develop your own style and design it the way you want to. So that's fortunately for me, I was able to do something like that.
It's great. Yeah, I think people really like this style. It was a different style that, I mean, especially when I grew up, it was a different style of artwork and the show that made it kind of stand out, the way the characters were designed, the scenes and things like that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I'm really inspired by Hanna-Barbera, the cartoons I grew up with. I'm really inspired by UPA, which was a style back in the 1950s, and I really love, Warner Brothers, the Bugs Bunny stuff, and I was really inspired by that as well. So I, really grew up loving all that stuff, and even stuff like, a Schoolhouse Rock and things like that. Just really loved any type of interesting cartoon style. I was always a big fan of. So, I think I'm a mixture of a bunch of things.
Definitely. So what do you hope to accomplish now, Butch, with your new show? Like, what do you want to do maybe that you haven't been able to do with some of the other works that you've done?
Well, with the garden cartoon, I'm a Christian, so the garden cartoon teaches kids the Bible. Because I looked at the Christian marketplace and I went, there's really not a lot of great cartoons. There's some, but there's not enough, in my opinion. And I thought, there's a lot of families out there that won't let their kids watch anything except Bible stuff. So I thought, and I've always wanted to do this cartoon because I love the Bible. And I'm like, you know what? I would have loved when I was a kid to have had a cartoon like this to teach me stuff through songs, through funny antics. The garden is basically that Fairly Odd sensibility with scripture in it. And so I really enjoy. In fact, I'll give you the poster right here. Here's my poster. This is Lenny. That's Lenny the lion. That's Lucy the lamb. And together they live and work in a miraculous garden where anything can grow, and they have a great time. It's for kids ages 5 to 8, and we have a garden cartoon app. It's on the App Store. You can get everything about the garden at gardencartoon.com. But it's again, I had to set all this up myself. I had to set the production company, get the support for it, and all that stuff. So there's a lot involved with making anything on your own.
Totally. Yeah. It's a whole process.
Oh yeah.
So just the last question I have, Butch, what do you aspire to accomplish now? What are maybe some of your short-term or long-term goals over the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what's kind of the big picture?
Great question. I really want to create a production company that produces high quality family entertainment. I'll do some Christian stuff, but then there's going to be just tons of family stuff. I want to make stuff that I would have no problem showing anybody. I hate to use the word safe because it sounds boring. But what I mean is something that any mom, because I'm a father of two daughters, about to have a grandchild, and I'm like, what are you going to put on the
Congrats.
screen? Oh, thank you. But the screen is very influential. So, the influence on that screen, you have a chance to do something good or something not so good. I'm doing my best to put out what I feel is good, just to entertain people. I want people entertained and I want them having a great time. And I want them meeting characters they can fall in love with. I want them hearing stories that they can, want to watch over and over, something that inspires them. And at the end of the day, just something that entertains them. I'm all about the entertainment.
That's awesome. I definitely love that. I think that through your previous work, I mean, it was very family friendly. It was open to anybody, and there were some nice values communicated too. And so I'm sure that with what you do now, that's what people will see. So I appreciate you coming on, Butch, and sharing your story, and excited to see what you do next.
All right, Ben. Hey, thanks for the opportunity. And like I always say, on my YouTube channel. Art gives you power. Use it wisely.